What you are about to see is true. No actors have been used. This is Kingston Penitentiary. Inmate Y7204, serving a 4-year, 4-month, 28-day sentence, the latest in sentences stretching back to the time that he was 11 for the theft of cars. This is his mother and his stepfather.
They were to give him mental help when he was sent to Guelph the last time. But we could never find out if he ever got any help.
We have never had any answers.
I can't understand why the magistrates say that, well, we'll send you where you can get some help. Well, what help are they getting?
Think of the night in Fort William that the police shot at him before he went through the barricade.
I took a 58 Ford station wagon from Port Arthur and went to Fort William. And while I was there, a policeman stepped off the curb with his service revolver drawn and ordered me to stop or he'd shoot. And I said, well, what the heck? I said, if he's going to shoot and he's got his revolver drawn already, they know that I'm not armed. The heck with it. So I naturally took off, and this other car took after me. And he started firing shots at me. And they put 3 holes through the rear tailgate of that. One just missed me. In fact, I heard it as it whizzed past me and embedded itself in the firewall. I wasn't afraid. Didn't seem to bother me at all. And in fact, the more cars there were after me, the more enjoyment I did seem to get out of it. I had information over our radio that there were 2 other police departments, the Port Arthur and the Fort William, chasing this vehicle. I got right behind him and tried to stop him, but he just wouldn't give an inch on the road, so therefore I followed him right through to a junction of Highway 17A and 17, at which time he failed to make the corner, and I put his car up into a snowbank. I rushed over to his car and got him out of the car, and there was no trouble with this lad at all from there on. It seemed that he enjoyed the chase. There was no damage done. Well, I got up in court, and there was quite a discussion about the Fort William police shooting at me. And I guess certain people tried to find out what the score was on that. But the Port Arthur police didn't shoot at me, nor did the Ontario Provincial Police.
Were you sentenced on this account?
Yes, I was. I was sentenced to Guelph, Ontario, for a period of 2 less a day.
2 years?
Less a day.
1 day.
Yes.
Was this the first sentence you had, a specific sentence?
No, it wasn't. I'd been sentenced before that, 57.
To?
I've been sentenced in 57. I was sentenced to, I was also in Guelph then. Well, I was sent to Bowmanville first, and I took off from Bowmanville. I ran away.
Yeah.
And then I was sent to the neuropsychiatric ward at Guelph,
yeah,
the OTS. And I got out of there in 58.
I don't think he, in fact, I know he didn't intend to damage any of the cars. He did damage some of them, but that was through being chased by the police.
This is Grace Bradford, friend of the family.
We were coming back from the lake, and Gregor had just got out, jail. It was just a couple of days or a week after. And all of a sudden, this car coming along around 80 miles an hour, and the cop car after it. We all said, oh, that's probably Gregor, And it was, It was expected of him, really. He can't help it.
He'd drive up and down the road, toot the horn at the police, and try to get a chase going. He seemed to enjoy this type of thing.
Why do you take the cars back?
Well, the reason I take the car back, I think, is because, in the first place, you don't know who you're taking the car from, and whether a person's going to need that car, or for what reason. And it begins to bug you, like it comes in your mind, you wonder whose car it is. When I take a car off a car lot, it's different, because I know that there's quite a few of them there, and nobody needs it. Well, somebody will probably need it, but not at that time. And I don't know, it's sort of funny.
This is Fred Gibson.
We have had generally the regular run of Saturday night thefts where the individuals are picking out the cars and going for a joyride. We find them located not too far from the dealership, either north or south, and invariably are in reasonably good shape. They're out of gas or they've had a flat tire or something, but the car is generally in good condition. From this standpoint, it hasn't really been any major loss to this particular dealership in this regard. It's proved more of a nuisance rather than anything else.
Tell me a little bit about the adventure.
Well, there's a lot of excitement connected with it, yes, because before you take the car, you know that you're going to be caught. I mean, that's in your mind at all times. A person like me, when I was younger, I just liked the speed of the cars. And then as you get older, you lose that, and there's a lot more caution put into it. But you still have that urge to speed, as if you're going to some place in an awful rush and not quite making it. I used to go up to a few people's place, and they'd ask me why I did this. And they couldn't figure out why I would do something like that. And at the time, I couldn't even try to explain to them why I did it. It was just something that happened, and I did it. And I guess they figured that I'm some kind of oddball. Quite a few of the people I've talked to have said that I shouldn't be in jail. I don't know, there's lots of people in society figure that all car thieves should be locked up and put away, but that's what happens to us. We're locked up and put away and forgotten about for the period of time that we have to do. And then we're released, and the same things happen all over again. Society screams again. They say that we should be locked up again. It never comes into their mind that there's something else besides being locked up that could be done for us.
Mm-hmm. Would you steal anything else?
Maybe any other type of motor vehicle, like a truck or a motorcycle, something like that. But as far as money goes, or goods of any type, no. I've got no use for them. I think that society, they look at a car thief as something that, or as a person that's stealing cars strictly for money.
Are you like these people, these car thieves that you mentioned?
No, I'm not. I'm altogether different. Because the person who steals a car for strictly the money angle is doing it simply for the profit of it. And they go out and they already have a plan in mind of what they're going to do when they get this car. And myself, I don't have any plan. I go out and I may not even have a thought of stealing the car.
Are you compelled to steal cars?
No, I'm not compelled to. But that's it seems to turn up that way. Like I may be, like as I say, I may take off out of the house and be walking along and have no thought about that car or of taking a car, and all of a sudden I'll find myself being drawn towards it. So yeah, I guess you could have to say that I am.
This is former police chief, now Port Arthur magistrate, T.A. Connor.
The toughest job that a magistrate has these days is to decide in the sentencing of the young people. The professional criminal is no problem at all. but the young person is. It's very easy for the magistrate to rubber stamp a sentence and send them away to some institution, either for short or long term, with the recommendation that they get some sort of a psychiatric treatment. But I know that this is not possible it's not possible for them to get adequate treatment in these institutions.
We felt the last time that he was committed, we tried to get him into the Ontario hospital. He did go for a month's observation, but he still had to go and stand trial.
Before I received the 2 less a day, I was sentenced to 30 days in the Ontario hospital in Port Arthur. And I had a checkup there, and they said that I was emotionally disturbed, but as far as mental goes, there was nothing the matter with me.
This is psychiatrist Dr. Ram Paul of Port Arthur.
In my opinion, the original diagnosis of this boy of a pathological personality or psychopath is entirely wrong. My feeling was that he was an obsessive-compulsive neurosis based on the mechanism of fear. Just at the time I was getting through to this lad, he was sentenced to jail, which I feel very strongly about. I did not feel that he should be sent to jail at all.
I blame myself for so much of it, mainly for the breakup of my first marriage, the fact that Gregor had to live with Mother and Dad, the fact that I had to nurse. There was so much resentment and so much bitterness in me.
As I told you, many, many occasions, blaming yourself wasn't the answer. It wasn't. There was so many things to be taken into consideration. As you said, Gregor was with his grandparents for 4 years, and his grandfather just doted on him.
I lived with my grandparents in Saxon, New Brunswick, from the period when I was just a young baby until I was about 5 years old.
Tell me, grandparents at times spoil.
Yes.
In the family.
Yes, they did. My grandfather thought the world of me, and therefore he had a tendency to spoil me, and he did. My grandmother was a little bit different. She didn't like the idea of me getting so many things like chocolate bars and stuff like that.
I suppose you sat in his lap and helped him drive the car and established a real warm bond
Yes,
with
I did.
grandfather. Now, when you compare your grandfather and your stepfather, would you say these men are the same, or would you say they are poles apart?
No, they're very far apart, because I was taught by my step-parents and my stepfather that young children should be seen and not heard, whereas my grandfather felt that if I had anything on my mind, I should speak my piece.
Did you ever think of going back to grandfather? Did you ever actually take steps to go back?
Yes, I did, quite a few times. In fact, that could have been the reason why I did take these cars, because I felt that I wanted to get away from something and go to something different, and my idea was to go to my grandfather. But once I'd get behind the wheel of a car, I'd lose that thought and just carry on the way I was going, because I liked doing what I was doing.
That's the sheer excitement of driving a motor vehicle.
That's right.
Did you actually become involved in cars at the age of 11?
Yes, I came involved in cars before the age of 11. When I was 9 or 10, I became involved in the first car theft.
What did you do? What was the situation that occurred?
My father had warned me 2 or 3 times that I should be home early for supper, but I was late again, and I came home. And my father had a bamboo ski pole. I got spanked with that, and I was put to bed without any supper. And my mother and father went out for the evening to the Legion. And they had a babysitter, and I said that I was going out. She said, "Oh, you're just kidding." But anyways, I got my clothes on. I said goodbye, and she says, "Come back." I didn't. I kept on going and went downtown. I was sort of afraid of moving around by myself. I didn't know where I was going to. I ended up on this car lot at Lakehead Motors anyways. It's quite cold, so I walked up to the back end of the car lot. There was a 48 Chrysler sitting there. I got in it to keep warm. When I was inside the car, I noticed that the keys were in the ignition. And so I turned on the radio, listened to that for a few minutes, and I decided to see if I could drive the car, because when I was younger, my grandfather taught me how to steer this truck.
Yeah.
And so I started up this Chrysler anyways. And the way I went, I was quite happy about that, because it gave me a feeling that I'd accomplished something, you know. And I guess it made me feel pretty big, too, at my age, sitting behind the wheel of a car. And I parked the car beside the Legion, and I was hoping that when my parents came out, they would notice me sitting there in the car. And I figured that maybe they'd try and get me out of there. But anyways, as it turned out, when they did come out of the Legion, they didn't notice me. They walked past. And I got a big kick out of this, because the police station was also right beside the Legion, and there were police cars driving past all the time.
Why did you go to the Legion to see your parents? Now, what was the feeling or emotion in your mind that you wanted to go and have your parents see you?
I guess that I wanted to have them see me in a car that was stolen. I figured maybe, well, at the time I thought it would prove to them that I was just as good, but now that I look at it, I think maybe it was because I wanted to hurt them for what they'd done to me.
Juvenile Court Judge W.W. Creighton.
This boy officially came to my attention as a probation officer when the boy was 11 years of age. The problem then was theft of a bicycle, actually, and I had him examined by a psychiatrist, and it was his opinion that the boy ought to go back and live with his grandparents in New Brunswick, where he had spent the first 4 years of his life. It appeared that he got along very well there. But before we had an opportunity to put this plan into effect, there were some other delinquencies committed, and he was brought before the court and formally committed to a training school.
I don't think we ever really understood how children should grow and how they develop physically or mentally, especially mentally or emotionally. How when now things that I have studied just because the psychology that I've learned just because of this one problem. And it's been a problem for 11, 12 years. To think that he had to go away to a penal institution, we felt at first a certain amount of disgrace. Our name would be smeared, and a certain amount of stigma attached to it. Always have, as far as penal institutions go, because I don't think anyone close to us had ever been committed before.
That's right. Well, first offenders, I would say, instead of sending them away, why don't they say now, instead of sending this boy away, lock him up, let's try and find out why he stole this car. And then, if you can find out why, and then give him the proper treatment or help.
But we were told that nothing could be done until it came to the courts. And we were told that he was psychopathic. We were told that he was no good. Why worry about him? Your daughter's all right. And I think of it now, I feel that when he most needed us, perhaps we weren't approachable or available to him.
I take it that your parents have been deeply concerned about your life in the last few years. I take it they have studied the history, studied their own lives. Have they talked to you about you and them? Have they tried to point out to you that they do love you, or have they? Do they just say, "Well, he's a bad boy"? That's all.
No, they try to point out to me that they do love me. In fact, I guess you'd have to say they do, because they've stuck by me no matter what I've done. And they've always been willing to help me, and they wanted to help me greatly. But it seemed to me that I didn't want to accept that help.
All right, when you're in jail, what happens to you and your parents?
We get along all right, because there's no contact.
When you're out, what bothers you most?
My parents. Funny, that's a funny thing, too, because right back as far as I can remember, there's always been something like that happening. I was told that if I was a good boy, that I would get certain things. If I wasn't a good boy, I wouldn't get them. I knew this girl in Port Arthur that I was going with, and I brought her down to the house. And after she had left the house, my father, he sort of laughed at me, and he said, "Oh, you'll do that hundreds of times." And my mother, she didn't like it too well. She thought that I shouldn't do this. I should stay closer to home. So just now the idea comes to me that she has been the type that wants me to keep me tied to her apron strings.
If she died today in a car accident, what would happen to you?
I think I'd make out okay.
Has she died many times in a car accident in your mind?
I've seen things happen like that in my mind, yes. I thought to myself that if this was to happen, I'd be a lot better off, because I could go out on my own without any strings tied to me and make a go of it without any holds on me.
Aren't you really angry, this quiet man I'm talking to?
Yes, it's very true. I walk around every day with a big smile on my face, and everybody figures I'm very happy, but inside, very angry. I've never told anybody that before. But I was at these people's place one Saturday, and one of the girls there asked me, she says, "What's the matter with you?" She says, "You're always smiling." And she says, but underneath, she says, "I can feel something else there." She says, "It seems like you're trying to drive yourself someplace, to some situation that you're not going to come out of." And I just laughed at her. And it seems, I remember now that at the time I was thinking of going out and driving a car, great high speeds, and maybe smashing it up.
So here's one way of getting out of this problem.
Yes, but you don't have the guts to do it yourself. It's different, though, than jumping off a range someplace about 4 stories high. I mean, this way you've got two ways to go. You see, you've got that speed there. You've got half a chance of surviving it, another chance where you're going to get it.
And yet you must have some tender feelings about your mother.
Oh, yes. I mean, I'd like to be close to her. And same with my stepfather. I'd like to be able to talk to him. But every time I try it, I always get my feelings kicked in by something or another.
Remember how Gregor paced back and forth here on this floor at various times? So just like a caged person or a caged lion. You've seen them. When you think of it, it reminds me of a wild animal caged up. He knew, I'm sure, and we couldn't. Gregor felt he couldn't talk to us. We felt I think it happens with all teenagers. When they could go to a friend or a close relative or someone that they admired or liked and talk to them, but can't talk to your own parents perhaps because we were too strict or tried to discipline too much. Actually, there's always two sides to a story, and I think that until we accept this ourselves, until we find ourselves, we can't do anything to help anyone else.
If he had taken cars for the purpose of committing further crimes with the aid of that car, then you might class him as a criminal, but he never did. He took these cars purely for the sake of having a car to drive. But whether he's a criminal now, I don't know. Because he's been in the institutions for so long that when he comes out, I don't know whether he's going to be a criminal or not.
And when he came out before, he said, oh, he's never going to take any cars again, you know. He said he learned his lesson, but he just can't help it. And then when they caught him again and he wrote, he said he doesn't know what happened. He just had to.
These young people that are emotionally disturbed, they have a compulsion to commit crime. This has been by some poo-hooed, which I don't believe in. We have the compulsive eater, we have the compulsive drinker, so why should we not have the compulsive breaker of the law?
I don't know really what the answer is for a problem of this nature, but I do feel that psychiatry and psychology have come closer to finding a solution to a problem of this nature than any other people working in the corrections field. And I think we must look to these people to eventually show us the way and find an answer. And in this case, I hope that someday, before it's too late, they will find an answer to this boy's problem.